Hi there, welcome to the YouTube channel of the International Society for First World War Studies. I'm Chris Kempshall and I'm the Society President. Now, the video that you're about to watch is a recording of a recent public event that we ran to explore the online encyclopedia and bibliography that the Society runs through Zotero. It's an amazing resource that will be of huge value to literally anybody who's looking to research or write about the First World War. We heartily recommend that you check it out. There's a bunch of really interesting links that also help you in this video's description. But we also want you to take this video as an example of the type of event that we run here within the International Society. We're always looking at events that will help our members, provide them with new skills, new information, new exciting things that they can explore. So if any of that sounds of interest to you as well, there's another link in the video's description to help you sign up to the Society and become a member. We hope that you will do. We hope that we'll see you at an event really soon.
Okay, so I'm very happy to welcome you to this event about the First World War Society Bibliography with Franziska Heimburger. So I will very quickly present myself, remind some things about the Society, and of course present our today's speaker, Franziska, and very shortly the event. So my name is Nina Regis. I did a master's degree at the UHSS and the University of Heidelberg and a PhD at the University of Toulouse Jean Jaurès about war bread during the First World War in Germany. And I'm currently a postdoc at the Casa de Velázquez in Madrid, and I work on food in POW camps and the humanitarian action of the King Alfonso XIII in Germany. I would just let someone in. That would be perfect. And I just joined the Society as a participant and development officer. I'm very happy to be here and to make this able. So a few words about the Society. What is the Society? So for those of you who don't know the Society, maybe who will listen to this record on YouTube, on the YouTube channel of the Society. So it's an international forum for researchers of all levels interested in the First World War and First World War studies. So, and as members, you will get access to several things. The first one is the Journal of First World War Studies at Taylor and Francis, and also to an email discussion list where you can ask questions, exchange things, and yeah, it's full of interesting information. There are also awards, conferences. The next conference of the Society will be in Thessaloniki, and so everything, all these information will be in links below the video on the Society's YouTube channel. So now I will present Franziska Heimburger, who will speak today about the Society's bibliography. Franziska is senior lecturer in British history at the Sorbonne University. She teaches British history and especially IT skills to students working towards English degrees. And important, she did a PhD on languages in Allied coalition warfare during First World War. And of course, this is why we are all here. She created during this PhD this huge and impressive bibliography, so we will talk about this in a few minutes. So it's really interesting that this is I'm really happy, to be here with you, because I think that this Society makes it able to learn from each other, and this is one of the events where we will learn more. It's just a way to meet, but a way also to learn from each other, change, support us, and yeah. So the event, in a few words. So we will talk about the bibliography, which contains over 20,600 references, which is really huge. And it offers the possibility of all the Zotero's functionalities. Franziska will also tell us more about this. So what's the goal of today's event? It's first of all, it's to show how it works, what it is, why it was created. And I think it can be very, very important for students who just began to work about First World War, but I think it also can be really interesting for persons who already use the bibliography since a lot of time. Myself, I use it since the beginning of my PhD in 2016, so it's a long time ago, but I'm sure I don't know everything about it. I'm very happy to be able to ask some questions to Franziska. So Franziska, thank you very much in advance for your time and the energy and everything you put in this event. And so I will begin with the questions without delay. Just look if someone else wanted to enter. No, perfect. So thank you very much to those of you who asked questions during your inscription. I will also ask these questions, but I will begin with a very simple one. It's why actually did you create this bibliography and when? So maybe just, good time frame and why? That's the first question, Franziska.
Thank you, Nina, for your presentation. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I hope you find this useful, interesting, I'd be delighted to hear your feedback on if you've used the bibliography, if there's something you found wrong with it, if there's something you think could be improved. I'm very keen to hear that too. So the first question was why and when. I'll start with when, which kind of explains the why then as well. Like all great ideas in a pub in 2011, during the conference in Innsbruck, the Society conference in Innsbruck, and we were chatting about the fact that the centenary had seen lots of big projects being set up. There were institutions who were planning to digitize massive quantities of sources, all sorts of things were being set up for the centenary. And as society members, we were trying to decide what we would do for the centenary. We didn't have masses of money, but what we did have were members in lots of different countries working on lots of different fields of the First World War. And that was when I put something forward that I'd been thinking about for a while at this point, and which originally came from a frustration. I can read English, French, German, Spanish, Italian if I need to. So I could cover lots of stuff that comes out on the First World War, but even at that point, I couldn't keep up with what was coming out, even in the languages I read easily. And I thought if that's my case, that's also the case probably for most other people. There are too many publications on the First World War coming out for one person to comfortably keep up with it. We really ought to pool our resources on this. So originally when I set the bibliography up, it was very much intended as a tool to keep up with new publications. And it then kind of morphed over time to become also a reference work with lots of not new publications in it. But when we first thought about it, we thought what would be really useful would be a tool that would enable us to keep up with new publications in the field and make sure we didn't miss anything important that came up that had just been published in a venue that you didn't keep a close eye on, for example. So that was the original motivation at the beginning. And I put some thought into it at that point. I looked into the other thing that had just come out at that point is a book some of you may well have consulted over time. This doesn't work very well. John Horn's Companion to the First World War has a great bibliography, and it came out about that time, 2010, 2012, I can't remember, somewhere pretty much then. And I remember discussing this with colleagues who said, it's got a great bibliography, isn't it a pity that it will be outdated basically by the time the book goes into print, because new things come out and because printed bibliographies always do go out of date. And that was the other frustration. There are limits to printed bibliographies because new things come out all the time. And so we decided we could find a digital way around that. And there was a bibliography at this point on the Society website, which was just a plain HTML site that got updated whenever someone remembered to do so, as in not very regularly. It was extra work. It wasn't particularly usable. And we decided it would need to be something more usable, which didn't create as much extra work for people. and that would be reusable ideally by people who use bibliography software, which was my case already at that point, and which at that point wasn't as widespread in general. So I wanted something that could be used by people who used bibliography software and by people who didn't. That was my compromise. I wanted something which would be usable in various formats. And that then led to various technical choices that I'll probably get into depending on your questions.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much for the first for all these informations. Yeah, and this leads actually to the why, leads to the who actually. So you did yourself, you began this this bibliography, but actually who make updates afterwards, because you can't do everything, I suppose, afterwards. So who make the updates actually, and can other searchers contribute? And maybe this will lead to the obvious question, which is how. So yeah, I let you go as far as you want in this.
Yeah. I might start a tiny bit technically on how it's set up before I get into the who edits it, because that actually it's linked. So our choice at this point was what we call a Zotero group bibliography. Zotero is a bibliography tool which is free and open source and generally very highly recommended if you haven't already chosen something else in your academic working habits. And one of the functionalities that it has is that you can have shared group bibliographies that are synchronized via the Zotero server, so that all the group members can have a copy of the bibliography on their computer and can be updated with what everybody else is adding at the time. So it's the ideal tool for the sort of thing that I was trying to do. And so I did the original setting up at the beginning, because one of the things I realized when I was planning for this and trying to decide what we would do was you need to, and this is important for anybody who thinks they would like to set this up for another field, I think it is very important to start with something which is already usable, useful. I set up, I think, about 1,500 references at the beginning that I entered that came from my bibliography and various other places in categories before we even talked about it to the rest of the members of the society, because I decided it's all well to say, you know, add new stuff when you see it. It's much easier if there's already a starting point and there are categories that people can sort of figure out where they want to add their material, and it's already a resource people could legitimately use. So that was the starting point. I decided I would need to put in some work at the beginning. So I set up the categories, which are based on the ones in the companion bibliography that I just showed you. And I added the references from the companion, from my personal bibliography, from a couple of printed bibliographies, from a couple of websites. So we ended up with about 1,500 references at the beginning, and that made it a tool which could be, you know, useful in itself without people adding new material. And then I put a call out to the society and asked who would like to help, who would like to be part of this. And people helped and were part of this in various different ways. The full list is on the Society website if you want to go and have a look in the bibliography section. But people helped in various ways. I had people send me bibliographies of their field in various formats because that was what they had. Stefan Lehnstedt contributed hundreds of references on Poland, for example. We have a very complete set on Poland, and as did various other people. So people sent me bibliographies that they had, and I added them. Quite a few people send things my way when they're at new on social media or by email. When they've published something, they send it my way in various other ways. And a small group of people actually add stuff directly to the Zotero group bibliography because they were already Zotero users or because the bibliography convinced them that they should be. And so they're the people that add it directly. I thought about this. You can set Zotero group bibliographies up so that they are open to everyone and anybody can add. And I chose not to do that because one of the things I think is important for a bibliography like that is a certain amount of quality control, as in you want people to be able to rely on the fact that the references are going to be filled out fairly comprehensively and neatly. Otherwise, people at all, really. So that was the one thing I decided. It wouldn't be open to completely free contribution. It's not Wikipedia. That said, if someone writes to me and says, I would like to add stuff to the bibliography, I say, yes, of course, please do. And I have a sort of a 2-page document with guidelines best you can. If you can get the author's first name, for example, that's a great idea, not just the initials, things like that. Sort of, it's really common sense. But so I send that to anybody who volunteers to add material. And so there must 10 or 12 of us who have editing rights, who contribute sometimes some regularly. Rockstager has been adding lots of stuff recently, which is very appreciated. Mayhem Murphy, who's here, has just joined us and who is adding material on Japan, which is very much appreciated because that's something I really, really cannot do. Yeah, there's a small group of us that add stuff directly. If you're not a Zotero user, or if you just have, occasionally things that you want added, send them my way by email, by any social media known to man, pretty much. Well, not Twitter anymore, but others. And I'll add them, or someone will add them. So that's basically how material gets added these days. There's one other thing that I should mention at this point, because it's an institutional partnership that we were very grateful for. We worked together with the International Encyclopedia 1418 in Berlin, who also have a bibliography, which is also run using Zotero. And when we discovered that we were using the same technology, we had a chat with their team. And we had an exchange a couple of years back when they sent us their references and our references got incorporated with them. And at that point, I think we got 6,000 references that weren't already in our bibliography that got added to ours, and which I fitted into our categories, which took a while. So yeah, so it's a mixture of different kinds of origins for the material that's in there. But yes, to my great surprise, 13 years later or something, 14, we now have over 20,000 references, which is, yeah, it's now become quite a sort of a hefty tool, which started out a very modest enterprise.
Okay, thank you very much. Actually, you answered some of my questions. That's perfect. So maybe we could go a little bit deeper into what is actually in this bibliography. Christopher Kreitzer asked, does the bibliography include PhD thesis and MA dissertations? So this would be the first little bit more concrete question about what is actually, what can we find there?
Yes, what I shall do is I think I shall share my screen so that you can see, this is the web view of the bibliography. So it's not the Zotero software, it's the one that you see when you synchronize with the website and that anybody can access on the website. So this is available to you, Zotero user or not. And I show some of the characteristics. I'll show what kind of types of it are available. And then we'll talk about other technical questions afterwards. So this is what it looks like. On the left-hand side, you've got categories that go all the way down there. Up there. And you've got tags, which we'll talk about later. And then here in the middle, you've got the list. So this is the whole bibliography. So you've got the 20,700 items. And if you click on any given item, you get the metadata about the reference on the right-hand side. Now, item types. Yes, PhD theses very much definitely included. They're not as well catalogued in the alerts as other kinds of publications. So there may well be lots of PhD theses that never make it onto my radars of alerts that I have signed up for. So if you're aware of a PhD thesis that needs adding that hasn't been added, please send them my way. That's definitely something I include. MA theses, yes, especially if they're on something that hasn't been covered greatly. I reckon, if it's an MA thesis on a topic that already has seen a lot of publication activity, I might hesitate. But if it's on something that hasn't really been covered greatly, or something that's going to be useful to society members, because MA theses are particularly hard to get hold of through catalogues and other things, then I'll definitely add it. That's actually a question I was asked. I've presented about this bibliography to librarians, including some who are sort of subject specialist librarians who run bibliographies. And that was the thing they asked me: how do you decide what goes in? And I said, well, things that I think society members will find useful. So academic publications, yes, always. Edited sources, not really, unless there is quite a lot of editorial effort and big introduction, a lot of analysis, things like that. So if it's just edited sources, memoirs, probably not, unless there's quite a lot of peripheral material around it. But that's yeah, basically sort of it surprised me as a question, because to academics I don't think it's as much of a question as it is to librarians. But yes, we definitely include them. And if you want to have a look at the item types, if you're in the Zotero interface, you can see there's a button up here where you can choose which columns you want to appear. So you could choose item type, and you can see that here it's given you item type. And so if you sort by item type, oh dear, my internet connection is not very good, but yes, you can see that there's lots and lots of books. All of this is not very surprising. We'll probably have to go a lot further before we hit anything other than books. My internet connection is a little bit slow. Right, if we go to the very bottom of the list, hopefully we'll come across something else. But so you can sort by item type, and for example, have it show you just PhD theses. It doesn't distinguish in the interface between PhDs and MA theses. They're all called theses, but it will say then in the details. So you've got all the journal articles there. So you can sort by item type if, for whatever reason, you were looking on recent PhDs on. I'm not sure Belgium's a great choice, because I don't think I've had any recently. But you could choose a subsection, a subtopic. Yeah, there we are. Thesis on Belgium during the First World War. There aren't that many, but we have got a few in there, including some recent ones. There we are. Yes, Chloe Peters' work on Belgium in the First World War. So yeah, so all productions by academics in First World War studies, essentially. Probably not, museum guides, things that are very much general public rather than academic. Probably not, unless they're on something that, is otherwise not very well known. It would be relevant to lots of people. But yeah, so there's sort of a small amount of judgment calls, but is really not very often problematic in that sense.
Okay, so a lot you can see and discover through this bibliography. So this is also a call to all of you, if you have some ideas. Franziska, you may get some emails. Okay.
I hope so.
Yeah, but this is the good thing too, because by doing this, you can let other historians know about actually that your article exists and being quoted and everything. Well, it's also the way to do that, because how you said, Franziska, it's difficult for one person to just keep the track of everything which is published every day. Okay, so we got an idea of how does it look like for people who doesn't know Zotero. So as Franziska showed it, you can just open the page and you see the bibliography at once. You don't have to do any inscription. I don't know, it's just open. So maybe, Franziska, you could show quickly the page, the page of the International Society for First World War Studies, because you have also some informations on this webpage. That's perfect. You have it opened. I don't know if you want to say some of the which are on this page. Yeah.
Yes, this is very temporary. We're currently working on a new website, so the website will soon change. But we'll add a link to the equivalent page once we get the new website up and running. This includes, for example, the credits I mentioned. We included bibliographies that have been contributed by various people, so you get the full list there. And it includes a very brief entry on using the bibliography to keep up with new publications. But I thought I might just actually show you all how to do that, if that's okay with you, Nina.
Yeah, perfect.
So let's say, for example, you're working on literature in the First World War. So there's a category in the bibliography for literature, which has got 1,537 items in its view. And so let's imagine you want to be kept up to date, not on everything that comes out on the First World War, because there's too much, but at least in your field of literature, the First World War, you don't want to miss stuff. And so there are different ways of going about this, but the one I'm going to show you relies on an ancient and venerable technology, which not enough people know about, which is the RSS feed, which is a technology which basically enables updates. A website tells other sites that are interested what is new on the page, to make it very simple. And Zotero provides those for whole bibliographies and for categories. And the way to go about this is you go into the whichever category you're interested in, and then you click on the three little dots here in the middle, and it will give you an option to subscribe to feed. And if you click on that, it opens a page of scary code, which you can ignore, and you just copy the address at the top. And then you need a tool that can use this RSS feed. There are several ways of going about that. There are so-called RSS readers, which is what geeky people like me who started doing this a long time ago, a very long time ago, still use daily. If you're not that kind of person, which is absolutely fine, there are other tools to do this. I'm just showing one here, but there are many others are available. But there's one called IFTTT, if this then that. And a free account on if this then that will enable you to set up 2 alerts like this. So that should be sufficient probably for most people. I'm just going to show you how you do this. If you click on create, the way it functions is if this then that. So we need to add an if this. We choose RSS feed because that's what we have. And then we will choose new feed item because you want to be told every time there's a new item. You could also make it search for keywords, but for the kind of things we're doing, probably new feed item would do. And then you paste the link that we just copied in there. You click create trigger. And then you need to define what happens after that. So you add, and this is where you get notified. So it's up to you, really. You could have it put the new entries into a Google Sheet if you thought that was relevant. You could have it send you a text message if you thought that was helpful. Or you could, for example, have it email you. So if you click on email, send me an email, because you create an account on IFTTT, they know your email address, and you could, for example, add this entry on First World War literature. And then what it will do is every time a new item gets added to the bibliography in that category, it will send you an email. There will be the title of the subject of which will be new bibliography entry. I can't type entry on First World War literature. And then where it says entry title, it'll put the title of the book or article or whatever it is. And it will give the link to the Zotero bibliography as well. We create the action, click continue. You could call it something nicer than that. You could call it literature editions by email. And you click finish, and that's it. And from then on, it just, every time a new title gets added to the bibliography, it sends you an email. And I have lots of alerts, I mean, not to my own bibliography, because I keep an eye on it, but with lots of other things. And what I tend to do is I set up filters in my email. So they go into special subcategories in my email, so they don't clog up my email when I'm needing to answer student emails and other urgent stuff. But they go into special categories in my email that I then go through when I have a bit of time. I was talking about this with Rocksturger, who adds to the bibliography quite a lot, and he said he uses the bibliography for productive procrastination. And when he knows he should be working, can't quite summon the energy to actually write, and thinks, what else shall I do? He adds stuff to the bibliography. In similar ways, when I've got an hour, but it's not enough to get stuck into something serious, I will go through the folders in my email where I have alerts for new publications, and in this case, I add them to the Society Bibliography, but you could just add them to whatever personal reading pile list management system you have. So that would be the easy way of doing it. Other tools are available. You don't have to choose IFTTT, but that's one way of doing it. Easy, free, fairly painless. And once it's set up, that's pretty much it. So you can, you don't have to fiddle with it after that.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
So much information. Thank you very much, Franziska, because actually this, I didn't do it, despite, I mean, I know the bibliography very well, but I didn't use the as a feed. And I think this scares a lot of people because it's how you showed it. I mean, we have to copy a link and then you have this code, which can be very scary, but we really see how you did it in few seconds. It's really easy at the end, and yeah, great. You gave us a new possibility to do productive procrastination. But yeah, thank you very much. There is a question which may be interesting now. It's for users. So for users who don't have Zotero, you can look on the webpage directly, or you can download Zotero to have Zotero also on your desktop, so as app. So this is really, really useful. And for those of you who already have Zotero, so maybe Franziska, you could show us how to actually access to the bibliography from our own Zotero on our desktop. How can we do that?
Yes, definitely. Hang on, I shall share my screen again. That was rather premature on sharing it. So I'm back sharing this, and if you go to this URL, First World War Studies Bibliography, if you're a Zotero user and you're logged in on the website, you will have a button that says join this group or something, or become a member of this group. And if you click on that, that's all you have to do. After that, if you synchronize your copy of Zotero, it will pull down the entire Society Bibliography to your Zotero, and you'll be able to use it there. And I'm just going to show you what that looks like and why that's a good idea. So, sorry, it always takes a while when you switch between screen sharing, but I think it's probably worth it. So if we go to, so this is my Zotero interface. So I've got my library at the top, and then I've got lots of group libraries below that. If you haven't got any others, then the First World War Studies Bibliography will be the only one. Zotero group bibliographies are separate, so it doesn't mix it in with your own bibliography, but you can drag stuff between them. So that means if you know, you're working on whatever topic related to the First World War, and you're a bit short on publication, or you're trying to find material on, I don't know, aviation, for example. What you can do is go into the bibliography, find the stuff you want, select it, and then drag it to your bibliography, and then you can use it there. You can annotate it. You can do all the things that you can do in Zotero there. So yes, if you're a Zotero user, please join the group. There are over 100 people. Actually, I can go and check how many there are. 130 people are members of the Zotero group bibliography, so that they can synchronize it to their computer. That gives you access to all the useful things you can do directly in Zotero. So if a student emails you and say, could you recommend 25 titles on this topic, the sort of thing that can take you take you an afternoon if it's on something that you don't already have ready. You can go into the Society Bibliography. You can select a couple of titles. I'm choosing these. Oops, there's a duplicate in there. I shall fix that afterwards. And then you right-click and you can say create bibliography from items. You choose your citation style, copy to clipboard, and then you can just paste it into an email and send it to a student. So yes, definitely, if you're a Zotero user, or if you have not yet chosen a bibliography tool in your life and you would like to, the First World War community recommends Zotero because we're already there. And then you can use all those advantages. You have more advanced search options. You can search either by title, creator, and year, or you can search in all fields and tags. So that would search also in journal abstracts, for example. So you would get better search options in the software tools. So if you're a Zotero user, by all means, please join the group so that you can then use it on your computer. And then eventually, if you would like to, I will give you editing rights so that you can add new stuff as well when it turns up. But a lot of those 130 people just use it passively if you want, in that they have access to it and they can then use the references and search in there alongside their normal work in their own bibliographies.
Okay, yeah, that's great news. I hope, yeah, Lisa, Aris, Franziska could answer to your question, but I think it's really simple. You just have to click, yeah, join. So, and yeah, I think it's a really great tool for teachers, not only for students. And yeah, when you have questions of students about a specific topic, and sorry, Franziska, you may share once more. You also, because you worked on languages and on the front. And so what for me is really interesting in this bibliography also is the fact that you included text. I think we can say that. Yeah. So you can also search in another way. So you can search at the left side, you can see the topics like aviation, Balkans, East Africa, etc. And at the bottom, you have little tags with languages and different topics. You can also, yeah, maybe Franziska, you could say something about this text, because it's also it was quite a lot of time, took time to do this and to categorize and everything. So it's a huge service you did to others. So I just let you tell us what it is exactly.
Yeah. So yes, there are categories and there are tags. Zotero lets you do organize your bibliography in whichever way you see fit, using both of those things. And what I and the other people involved at the beginning decided to do was to have categories for the content, bearing in mind that in Zotero references can be in several categories. So if we have a book on French literature, the First World War, it will be in literature and in France most of the time. So quite often references are in several categories depending on the topic. If it's just on France during the First World War, it'll just be in France. But if it's on a content topic, if you want, as well as a geographical region, it will probably be in both. And the other thing that we did was we tagged languages. So you can see here it says English, French, German, and other. We decided getting too granular about this was going to be difficult. And this was after a couple of years of setting up material. And so the way this works, and it's the same in the web interface and in the Zotero software, if you click on one of the tags, it will show you only the references that have been tagged like that. So this gives us the titles in the literature category that are in English, 909. It's not entirely sometimes usually when I do a presentation on this, I spot a mistake somewhere. But for now I can't see any. So and if I then click on it again, the others come back. You can see that there are colored dots that give you the same information. So the yellow ones are in English, The green ones are in French, the red ones are in German, and the blue ones are in everything else. Everything else is mainly Italian, Spanish, and Japanese now. A little bit of Russian, a little bit of various other languages, but not much. So that gives you the access to that. I started tagging material by society members, but I need to go over that again. If you have recently joined the society and you notice that your bibliography entries aren't tagged as society member, that's because I need to get hold of a more recent list and go through that again. But that's very much work in progress, but it was an idea at one stage we had. And we also at one stage tagged books by references by women, because we were trying to work out whether things were changing in publications on the First World War. That's not perfect, because sometimes we only have initials. Sometimes I don't know what first names mean. It's all a very hatchet-based categorization, but you know, it's as best we can do. But the result of all of that is, if you were organizing a seminar and you thought, I'd like to run a session on religion during the First World War, and it's a seminar I'm holding in French. I wonder who has published recently on this. So you could select religion, French, and then sort the well, this would be the publication date, which basically gives you the references that have been added by descending date of publication. So here you have the list of people who have published recently on religion during the First World War in France, which would then give you an idea of people you might get in touch with. And if you decided your seminar wasn't looking very balanced and you wanted it to be a woman, you could click on that as well. And then you would have the recent publication by women on the First World War, on religion during the First World War, sorted in that order. So we decided it would be a useful tool in that sense as well. It gives us an idea of the field. Obviously, it's not exhaustive. I add as much as I can see. Other people add as much as they can see. But when people email me because they're offended because something of theirs isn't in there, I say, well, let me know when they come out and I'll add them. I can't see everything as it comes out. I do my very best, but I don't have unlimited time, and some stuff doesn't get picked up very well by catalogs. So if there's something missing, please get in touch. Someone once emailed me very offended because the Canada section was missing important titles, and I said, well, you can fix this. Send me the important titles and I'll add them. So yeah, if it's not up to the standard that you would want it to be, this is your opportunity to fix it, and send me the references that would make it the tool you always wanted it to be, essentially.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's the important idea. That's collaborative. Now that's it's not possible that one person does it. And yeah, it's important. I think what you just said, Franziska, that people and researchers and colleagues keep in mind that it's it's a very rich resource. It's open source and everything, and also it's collaborative. So this is a very important point, and I hope that those who listen to us today and afterwards on the YouTube channel will do their part if they see something they would like to add. Last questions, because we will run out of time. It would be nice to have some questions from the public. There are already two in the chat, but I would just ask a last question, Franziska, about your actually experience of creating this bibliography, because I think it can really be an inspiration for other fields. I mean, we are also in other fields. So how maybe what could you say to a person who would like to create this kind of bibliography, where there's certain difficulties you faced and you would say, okay, don't do this, or this, you should think about it before you open this bibliography. This was also the question of Marina Perez-de-Arcos, who asked, if you would embark on this project again, what would you do differently? So very more question about other people who would like to do the same than you did? And this would be the last question so that we can
Yeah.
other
Yes, vast question. I'll start with would I do anything differently, and then I'll get back to more general advice. I don't think I would do anything significantly differently, because I decided the good thing about the tool was I decided I would set it up and I would get started and I would see, how much updating I could do and how much updating anybody else could do. And I decided once it got past a certain number of references, it would be a useful tool, even if things slowed down and people didn't add as much. So I decided it's not some projects you take on and then, they require that you always add on table, you're then caught in it and you have to add new material, you have to do something with it regularly. I decided it had adapted quite well to work rhythms. It benefited greatly from about 6 years when I was head of department and head of various other things, and I didn't really have time to do any of my own research. And the only contact I had with research was adding new titles to the bibliography, which made me feel better about not being completely out of touch, even if I couldn't actually do very much research of my own. So that's linked to Rockstarger's constructive procrastination. For me, it was a way of keeping in touch with research that was happening. So that probably kept it afloat over a couple of years before more people joined it and added more material. As I said at the beginning, I think it's important to set out with a tool that is actually useful in itself. It doesn't have to be immense, but if it has got categories and sort of a starting point that would be useful to someone as a tool in itself, I think it has a much better success rate. I've seen other projects say, "Oh, we're going to have a shared bibliography." H Empire set up one ages ago at the very beginning when I was thinking about this. And they sort of created 2 or 3 categories and somebody stuck in 2 references and then nothing happened ever again because people forgot about it, and that was kind of it. So you probably need a few people who are sort of determined to stick with it. The fact that it's Zotero, if Zotero fits into your workflow, it's not it's not adding significant extra work onto what you're doing anyway. So that's relevant, I think. If Zotero is not part of your workflow, you might have to find a different way of doing this. But that's something that made a big difference for me, I think. Yes, what else can I say? I found it useful for myself because it meant that I was very up to date with new things coming out. And the number of times I emailed a colleague saying, "Have you seen this?" And they said, "Oh, how did you notice that?" And I said, "Well, I get a lot of updates on new publications so that I can add them to the bibliography. And then, of course, I see stuff that other people might find useful." So I found it, to me, to be useful. I would have kept myself up to date on publications on the First World War, but probably not as extensively as I then do because I'm feeding stuff into the bibliography. So I have things like Google Scholar alerts on, lots of keywords linked to the First World War. And when I have a moment, when I have an hour between, classes or meetings or something, I go through that because, it's a nice change from writing emails, and it keeps a useful tool going. So I think that would be my feedback on it, really. I think that's probably all I can say on this, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for all of these details. Yeah, it's actually, we see when you explain it how much work it is actually behind. So and maybe to the things that in the chat, to the question of Jack and Jagdish about the references, if they conform to a specific citation style. Actually, you can choose it in Zotero. You can adapt the citation style. How you do it, you have to choose yourself. Actually, I think maybe you can say something else about this, but
yes, and I've just thought of another thing that I shall say, and then I'll get back to the other questions. Yes, basically that's the other advantage of running it in Zotero. Zotero stocks the metadata that you need to come up with bibliographical references. So it has the name and the place and the publication, whatever. And then you can get it to spit it out in whichever format you wish. So that works on the website, and it works even better with more options in the software tool. So the bibliography is not in itself in a format. It contains all the information that you need, and you can then, if someone wants it, Chicago or MLA or whatever, you can choose your format as you then create the bibliography. So that's the big advantage. It's not set in stone. It can be reused in various formats.
Yeah.
The other thing I haven't said, and because I showed how to get emails as updates, the Society is moving away from Twitter and towards Blue Sky. If Blue Sky is your thing, you can follow the Society on Blue Sky, and I shall share the account if I get, so that you can see what I mean. Hang on, where's my Zoom window? There's my Zoom window. Here we are. So this should show you, First World War Society, Blue Sky account, and every time a new reference gets added, it goes out as a Blue Sky message. So these are Mehon's recent editions in Japanese, but if you go further back, you can have various other, it gets mixed in with the other stuff. It gets sent out as messages, obviously, but you can see a new bibliography entry each time something gets sent. So that's another way of keeping yourself up to date. If email alerts isn't your thing, you can set alerts on Blue Sky. I've forgotten where you do that, but somewhere presumably you can choose, and then you can get a notification every time there's a new publication there, if that's your preferred way of keeping up to date with things.
Yeah, or you can just...
Sorry, I forgot to say that earlier.
Thank you very much. No, or you can just follow, the Society's account on Blue Sky and look from time to other what is published, and that's another way to do it. So before we go on with the things in the chat, I would like to give you the opportunity to ask questions or other things out loud. If someone wants to say something, you can click on React, and then on just try
the hand thing.
The hand,
shall I answer the questions in the chat while people are thinking about questions they might ask?
Yeah, perfect.
Because there was a question from Bryn Hammond on the reference sources on the material culture of the war, such as objects or equipment. Yes. Those things do sort of sneak their way in via catalogs and publications of that kind. They do, we're probably not, the coverage probably isn't great because it's not the sort of thing that crosses my desk easily. But yes, definitely. And there isn't currently a great category for that, but we could think about that if that made sense. We could probably add stuff that would be helpful for curators. That's useful. And Christopher Kreutzer asked, is it possible to say where there are gaps in coverage, older publications, what dates might lack coverage? Yes, we were missing stuff on sort of older things that weren't the great, very canonical titles until the cooperation with the Berlin Encyclopedia, because we basically got everything that people referenced in their articles, and that filled in years backwards quite well. There's always stuff that's not in there because there are so many publications on the First World War since the First World War. So some of the geographical categories are a bit sparse, mainly the ones where there isn't much, but some of them are a bit sparser than others. Those are the main ones I'm aware of. And then there's the inherent language biases. The English language stuff gets picked up a lot better in all the catalogs and alerts and stuff, so I'm better aware of that. I tend to be aware of the French stuff because that's where I work. And I worked on a project that worked on the centenary and what publications in France on the centenary, so that's pretty exhaustive, the French stuff recently. German stuff, for example, I'm not as good at keeping up to date. I get alerts from the Bayerische Staatsbibliothek, so I do kind of have the newer stuff, but afterwards it can be a bit patchy. I don't think we have significant gaps in the older material, but that's mainly due to the encyclopedia, which made sure that we covered stuff very comprehensively at that point. Do we include videos? Not as such, though we do have, let me see if I can find that. we have a category for films because this is mentioned on the page on the Society website. I'll share my screen so that you can see that. Share here. So there's a category called films, documentary and fictional, and then by country. And that was actually assembled by, I've forgotten the name. The film section was established by Emma Castle-Grandstaff using suggestions from the Society mail list. There we are. Yeah, years and years and years ago, someone asked, could everybody put suggestions forward on films in the First World War? That's not comprehensive, obviously. I can think of a lot of French ones that aren't on there. But there was an attempt made at one point to enter stuff, so they're in there. And honor to our Society president, Chris Kempshall, who works on, amongst many other things, also First World War video games, put together a bibliography of, well, not a bibliography, a film, well, a gameography, I suppose, of games on the First World War, which has also been added. So those are things that got added as well as the categories. We'd be very much, if there's something that your subfield of First World War Studies chooses that is really not represented at all, I'd love to hear from you, and we could see how we could work to add stuff in. I always get people who say, my subfield doesn't have a category. This is a scandal. Yes, we try to keep it to keep the categories fairly large, because if you have too many subcategories, people get lost. So you may find that your subfield doesn't have a category of its own, but I'm very much open to discussion. And if you say yes, but it doesn't fit in anywhere, and things are getting lost and aren't being added, we're definitely, these things aren't set in stone. We can definitely rethink some of them. The couple of things that I have on my list that currently don't fit very neatly into categories that could do with fixing. The other thing I'm thinking about going forward is splitting some of the categories. For example, the legacy category is such a vast umbrella that it has 2,000 items in it, and includes everything from archaeology to memory to the museums to all sorts of things, and which makes it, I think, not unusable, but hard to get to grips with, and it probably needs split into fields. So one of the things I'd like to do sort of for the next 5 to 10 years is find people amongst the Society members who are willing to work with me on some of these categories and say, right, if we needed to rejig this, how would we do it? What would the consensus on this be? Can we take one of these categories and go through it and decide how we would split this up to make it into a more usable tool for people who are new to the field, especially?
Yeah, that's really impressive, the work you did. And I'm looking, does Zotero allow keywords as well?
Yes, it does. That's the tags that that I showed. The language tags are the ones we put in systematically. And there are actually other tags in there as well that came over from the Berlin Encyclopedia. So the tags in there come from their articles. So, if there's an article on whatever topic, the tag migrated over and I kept those. So you can use keywords as well as categories, but I was a bit wary of mixing them too much, because then people end up getting lost. So at the moment, the tags are mainly used for the languages, and the categories do the content really. But that's again something we could think about. Something we did at one point during the centenary, there was a documentary on British television, and the First World War historians got very excited because it was a little bit weak on scientific content. And we set up a bibliography, because you can create a tag on the fly. People said, they should have mentioned this. And so I tagged all the things, and we were able to tweet out a link as the Society saying, if you watch this documentary, these are the things you should go and read. So it's easy to set up stuff on the fly and say, right, for whatever, we could do this for conferences, we could do, there were ways we could use the material that's in there and better put it forward so that people discover it more. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear from anybody who's got ideas like that for things that we could do going forward.
Do anyone have like a last question? You can raise your hand and just speak if you want to. If not, I think we will end the conference right here. Yeah, so if anyone wants to speak. So thank you very much for all your questions in the chat. And yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Franziska, for your time and all these very important information. I think it will bring a lot to others who would like to create a bibliography, to anyone who would like to add it to his own Zotero bibliography, for students, for teachers. So I really hope that you could learn some more through these informations. So many thanks also to Chris Kempschel, who helped preparing this event with the president of the society. And so yeah, I think you can also find all this information. I will put the links about all the informations below the video, so you can click on it and find them. And I don't know, Franziska, if people can just write to you if they have questions. Or I will also put a contact link, contact email, below the video, so it will be more easy if you want to contact someone from the society. And yes, don't hesitate to contact us to join us for next events. This one is open, so to everyone. It may not be the case for all the events. So yeah, thank you very much for being here today. And thank you again, Franziska, for this huge work you did for all of us. Really, I think it's a big step forward for students, for everyone who wants to know what's going on in the field of First World War studies. So I would be happy to see everyone of you on another occasion. And yeah, have a nice day.